Have you ever wondered how we actually discovered microbes, considering we can't even see them? Fret not, I did some digging for you. Here is a brief history on the discovery of microbes. In the ancient days, diseases were often thought to be caused because of an imbalance in your bodily fluids, also known as humors. And so at the time, physicians often treated patients based off of this theory. Treatment methods ranged from giving people herbal remedies to bloodletting. However, at this time, the true nature of diseases was still unknown. And then as the world moved on to the Renaissance era, we had a scientist by the name of Antony von Leeuwenhoek who made this single-lensed microscope. Now, he wasn't the first one to ever invent a microscope, but he was the first one to use this to look at tiny microorganisms. And with his microscope, he was able to uncover a whole world of new creatures that are completely invisible to the naked eye. Next, we have Florence Nightingale, and she was a trailblazing nurse. She brought a scientific approach to nursing and healthcare. She emphasized cleanliness, proper sanitation, and hygiene, and these three things significantly reduced the mortality rates. Her work completely transformed the practice of nursing and also laid the groundwork for modern day epidemiology. Now we move along to the mid-19th century. At this time, most people believed in something called the spontaneous generation theory. And that is as it sounds. They just believed that things just kind of came up out of nowhere. So like a flea could come out of a speck of dust, or like maggots could just come out of a dead fish. And to add to that, people also just believed that processes such as fermentation also just spontaneously, randomly happened. But then this man right here, French chemist named Louis Pasteur, proved them all wrong. His famous swan neck flask experiment was able to prove that microorganisms, specifically bacteria, are responsible for the fermentation process. And his work laid the foundation for the germ theory of disease, which basically states that germs, or microorganisms, are responsible for a lot of the diseases. Another popular belief that people at the time had was that diseases were caused by bad air, also known as the miasma theory. So they basically believed that they were these like clouds of bad air, and if you walk through them or they came over you, that's how you got sick. And so in the mid 1800s in London, there was a huge outbreak of cholera, and people thought that this is how this was spreading. That was until a physician named John Snow, not this guy, this guy. And what he did, again, was revolutionary. He mapped out all of the different cases of the disease, and he was able to pinpoint that it actually originated from a contaminated water pump on Broad Street, which was huge at the time because that wasn't even considered to be a mode of pathogen transmission. And then we have the famous Robert Koch, and he developed Koch's postulate. So this is basically a criteria that he developed to establish a connection between a particular microorganism and a certain disease. His work was absolutely crucial in identifying the specific pathogens such as bacteria that cause tuberculosis and anthrax. He also developed methods for isolating as well as culturing bacteria in labs. And lastly, we have Edward Jenner. So he pretty much pioneered the concept of vaccination. He realized that if you take a small amount of cowpox and inject that into a healthy individual, they not only are protected from cowpox, but also the deadly smallpox. Fun fact, the scientific term for cowpox is vaccinia, and so he used vaccination as a term to call his new procedure. And his vaccinations marked a crucial point in disease prevention. And then throughout the 1900s and even modern times, antibiotics were discovered, such as penicillin, and they offered effective treatment against bacterial infections. And so the revelation that microbes were responsible for certain diseases caused a huge shift in medical understanding. And as microbiology advanced, so did our ability to combat these diseases, leading to the discovery of vaccines, antibiotics, and improved sanitation practices that have saved countless lives.